Hey there! Welcome to our What's New in Windows Server 2016 hands-on course. My name's Garth Schulte. I'll be your host, taking you through some of the most anticipated features in Server 2016. In this introductory nugget, we're going to take a quick look at what those awesome product-defining features are, and then I'm going to get you up to speed on the Virtual Nugget Lab. A great way for you to follow along, get a head start, and get some hands-on experience with those new features. Let's do it. Windows Server 2016 is almost here. It drops at Microsoft's Ignite conference in late September 2016, and it's being touted as the cloud-ready OS, the data center OS of the future. And marketing lingo aside, there really is a lot to be excited about. There is a ton of new features, and a lot of older features have matured. And there's some pretty neat stuff in this operating system, a lot of which, the big ones anyway, we're going to cover in this What's New course, and all the rest of them we'll cover in our Server 2016 certification-based training here, dropping this fall shortly after release. Now in this course, again, we're going to focus on those features that are set to make a big splash all across the industry, and that we're going to need to know in order to harness the true power of Server 2016. The first feature we're going to dig into, and easily the one that has received the most press, is Nano Server. A brand new, extremely fast, lightweight, headless, and purpose-driven deployment option. It's really going to change how we think about infrastructure and operating systems. What words come to your mind when you think of a server OS, or any OS for that matter? You probably think of things like big, thick, heavy, not very portable. And that's really what our server OSs of today are. It's kind of like a house. In fact, server with the desktop experience is literally a house. You build it, you're never moving that thing, and you do a lot of things in that house. You eat, sleep, play, work, you do it all. Well, Server Core was a step in the right direction, but it's like a little house. It's like a shed, right here. It's still, you're going to build it, it's not going to move, and you're going to do a couple of things inside of that shed. Well, Nano Server is a lot like a car, right? It's purpose-driven. You do one thing in that car. You go from point A to point B. It's portable. You're going to take that thing wherever you want it to. It's fast. And really, Server Core still looks like Godzilla to Nano Server. So in our Nano Server Nugget, we'll dig deeper into what it is, give you a more technical comparison to the other deployment options. We'll talk about what it's going to be used for, some of the different scenarios that it's going to support, and we'll get into the Virtual Nugget Lab, create and play with a Nano Server. From there, we're going to hit up containers, which has been a very hot topic in IT over the last few years, especially amongst the dev and the DevOps crowds, because once again, it's changing how we think about infrastructure, specifically hosting and deploying applications. In a nutshell, containers are just simply the next phase in virtualization. The first phase was virtualizing physical hardware so we could pack more operating systems onto a physical machine. The next phase is operating system virtualization so we can pack applications and services onto an OS and they are in their own little isolated world. They get their own view of that OS. So in that nugget, we'll dig deeper into what containers are, how to use them, what they're good for, the different kinds of containers that Windows supports, and then we'll jump into the Virtual Nugget Lab and together install Docker and spin up some containers. From there, we're going to move into one of my personal favorite additions to Server 2016, Storage Spaces Direct. This is an evolution of storage spaces that, again, is going to change how we think about building storage systems. Microsoft has completely opened up the bottom layer of their software-defined storage stack so we can use locally attached storage to build our storage pools. Just imagine having the ability to build storage pools, clusters of nano servers with locally attached storage and commodity hardware. That's going to be a big win. So in that nugget, we'll dig deeper into what Storage Spaces Direct will do for us, the different scenarios that it supports. And by the way, that is the mother of all virtual labs. We'll spin up a cluster of nano servers with locally attached storage, create a storage pool, and have a little fun with that cluster. From there, we'll jump into Storage Replica, another fantastic storage feature. We finally have a disaster recovery solution in Windows Server. And no, DFSR was not a disaster recovery solution. So we'll do some comparisons there, talk about, again, all the scenarios that it supports, server-to-server replication, cluster-to-cluster replication, stretch clusters, and then in the Virtual Nugget Lab, we will implement server-to-server replication. We've also got a nugget on PowerShell 5, which is coming with Server 2016, actually PowerShell 5.1, and it's loaded with many new features. So I'm going to give you my favorite 10 features in PowerShell 5, and we'll jump into the Virtual Nugget Lab and play with a lot of them. I'll show you some tips and tricks and cool things that we'll be doing, because you know what? We all need to know PowerShell very well. In fact, how are we going to manage our nano servers if it's headless? You guessed it, PowerShell. And finally here, we're also going to take a look at 10 awesome features in Hyper-V. Hyper-V has matured into a wonderful product, and it has a lot of great additions that make it so. In our virtual lab for Hyper-V, we'll look at how to enable and work with nested virtualization. Another fantastic feature so we can turn our virtual machines into Hyper-V hosts. The final nugget in this course is packed with some good information to prepare you for Server 2016. I'll show you where you can find the feature comparison datasheet, the licensing datasheet, and also all the information you'll need around the brand new Server 2016 MCSA certification. All this talk about labs, but what is a virtual nugget lab? Well, it is an environment full of Windows servers that you can get in through your browser and play with. You can learn fearlessly, quickly. You don't need to set up your own lab environment. It's ready to go. And new in this course is every nugget has a virtual nugget lab. A nugget may have one machine, it may have a network of machines, but you can jump right in one click and start playing and experimenting with all the new features here in Server 2016. So to launch a lab, the first thing you'll do is choose a nugget. When you're watching that nugget and you hear me say, all right, launch the virtual nugget lab for this nugget and I'll meet you over there, that's when on the right-hand side of the course page, you will click the link for the virtual lab and it'll launch you into the lab for that nugget. And the recommendation for working with these labs is to have multiple devices. So have a machine that you can do your work on, and then have another device like a tablet or a phone or even another machine that you're watching the nugget on. So while you're watching and you see me run a command, pause me and run a command and see what it did. Then keep going so you can follow along with me step by step for everything we do in these labs. It's a really great way to learn. It's immersive, it's interactive, and it'll give you that crucial hands-on experience with these new Server 2016 features. In fact, let me launch one just to give you an idea of what the interface looks like and how you'll be using them. So I've got my browser open here with the lab loaded. This is our storage replica lab. So this is a lab that has 3 machines. We have 2 server with the desktop experience, and we have 1 server core that's acting as our domain controller. So yeah, you're going to have the ability to play with all the different deployment options. The full desktop experience server core as well as Nano Server. Now, if a machine has multiple labs, again, you can just bounce through them on the right here. We also have a drop down, so you can switch machines this way as well. You have control over your display options, and you can send commands here to these machines as well if they don't work on your keyboard. Let me show you another lab here. I'm going to flip over to our Storage Spaces Direct lab. Look at this. Nano servers all over the place. So right now these nano servers are just lonely, living in their own world. But what we'll do in this lab is turn them into a cluster to test out Storage Spaces Direct. Pretty cool. Now, if you need to log in, notice you always have your username and your password up here on the right-hand side. You can also put your mouse in here and just click on that clipboard icon, and it'll paste the password in there. Very easy to work with. These labs are here for you, so do whatever you want with them. Learn fearlessly without having to worry about breaking things in your own lab environment. In the CBT Nugget, we covered all of those sweet new Server 2016 features that we're going to be learning about and playing with in this What's New in Windows Server 2016 course. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.